Bonjour, Mori, and hello.
That's one fucking way to start a video. Hello, everyone. I'm
Today,
Duke,
I am Moulage.
and we have another mask to talk to you about.
This is so. This is probably one of the most unique masks that we've handled, especially one made when it was made.
Not in a good way either.
No, I have. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. Before I start this, I want to say first of all,
Full disclosure.
yeah, full disclosure, I haven't done any work on researching ProTech, which was originally HS Covers, who made the automatic respirators. All the research that you want, Buttstow has already done that. You should really go and watch their video if you want the history of ProTech. Or
They've put so much more legwork into this than I could ever care to even think, like even fathom putting into this. So like if you absolutely need to know about this abomination, by all
and
means.
how we got here, because they figured out everything literally from 1910 to like 1990. It's all there on their channel. You should go talk to them, watch their videos. All that we're doing today is we're looking at this objectively compared to our experience with masks and just talking about everything that's strange to us, because there's a whole lot of strange shit on this mask.
There's also a lot of surprisingly innovative things for what they had to work with, but it's going to be a hell of an emotional roller coaster just breaking this thing down. So where do you want to begin, Moulash?
Well, let's address the horse in the elevator, which is the harness system. I think that's the most egregious thing to me.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't even press record while I was setting this thing up, because holy dog shit, this is about the only way this face piece could get worse in terms of distribution of tension is if it was a 2-point. Like you cannot. There is people argue about like 5-point versus 6-point. How about just no points? Just it's 4-point.
So yeah, so let's actually look at that. So what we have here, there's only 4 buckles on this thing. They are all directly attached using this black rubber here to the outside of the lens periphery. There's 2 on this side, 2 on this side. And these go back. The top 2 are sewn into a strap, and then both of the the lower ones come up in an X and connect to this harness. So you effectively get kind of a triangle box there on the back of the head, which apparently works. This thing seals. It met
NIOSH or
yes,
I don't know. One of the standard.
It met Mine Safety and Health Administration approval.
So, and that's mostly merited due to the construction of the face piece itself. So this is this obviously it's a red rubberish material, but it's actually PVC. All the sealing surfaces are PVC, which when warmed up by like the user's own body heat will conform to the face. And these buckles are retained. It seems very precarious because, as Moulage implied, these are literally just pieces of rubber folded over around the buckles and glued to the face piece. But no, it's actually, it could be glued or cemented, but I'm pretty goddamn sure that these are actually heat welded in place. It could be cemented, but cementing 2 pieces of plastic together is a lot less difficult than cementing 2 pieces of rubber together, especially like natural rubber or butyl or something, or especially silicone. I mean, and this is not to overlap you, but this is a harness configuration that does work on other mask designs. Like say, just off the top of my head, the 3M, was it the 6800, the gray one?
Yes.
So I think that's the 6800. I could be wrong.
No, that's correct. It is a 6800.
Yeah. So that also has a 4-point harness, and those things are like cockroaches. Like if you go to like any hardware store or just those if you look for
if you go to any industrial plant and go in the back room that they haven't opened in 10 years, they're going to have those in there, and they'll still seal and they'll still work for
those
what you're doing.
If you're like, those are going to be the first full face masks that you're going to see outside of a surplus store. So it's clearly a design that works, but there are some material limitations that really limit this design. I mean, for one thing, the arrangement of the straps isn't all that great, and then the elastic itself is probably some of the damn cheapest elastic that I like. This I think this is braided elastic. I don't really know why people still use braided. Braided elastic is like for clothing. Like you use that in like the waistbands of like underwear or brassieres or things like that. It is not something you want to use as a gas mask harness, because it's just not great.
Yeah, I will say actually after listening to Duke there, because these videos are progressionally generated. We don't come into these with any particular ideas. Especially having the seals right here and going off, say, the 6800 or the MSA Advantage 3 or 4000, or the say the SGE,
Yeah.
all of those you have plastic face piece, plastic rim, and then only the face seal is made of actual rubber or flexible material. And this is almost a prototype for that design, where you have obviously the harness is on the lens, it's on this rigid surface,
Yeah.
and then all of this right here, this is all effectively collapsible, and like Duke said, it deforms with the heat, and it seals around your face. So it's the same approach to something that we thought was so fucking simple. There wasn't another way to do it.
And it's, again, there are a lot of design aspects of this particular mask that would work, but again, there are certain things like with the like the elastic that the head harness is made out of. If they had just invested in molding a rubber harness, this probably would have been infinitely better. Like this would have been, I would have had much fewer complaints about this design if they had chosen a better material to make the actual head harness itself out of. But I think overall, just the position of these two harness points for an industrial mask, especially one that's only designed for like, nuisance dust or spray painting, this is perfectly adequate. But like I said, just material limitations of what they were working with. And for the period, I guess it was fine. It just, looking at it now, I mean, especially more so that certain materials like the elastic is starting to rot, but it's just not great.
It's so, and I believe Bots is obviously going to leave a comment where they chime in on this, but
Yeah. We're going to miss stuff about
this design. The stuff we're complaining about was not the downfall of covers / Protech.
Yeah.
That was not the issue. That a couple corporate mergers and basically some adventure capitalists bought them, and that's what led to their downfall was corporate changes.
They didn't get sued out of existence like Polmasan or some other companies.
So yeah, and they maintained good profit margins. They were completely fine, and
they were very much a grassroots company.
One of the last grassroots companies, because now really it's down to MSA, Honeywell, and Avon, and that's really your Honeywell, 3M, and Avon, because everything's so conglomerated at this point. This is the last company where there's the famous we're no chicken ad or whatever the fuck. So they put out an ad saying we don't do hard hats, we don't do safety glasses, we don't do pants, we don't do we don't do anything but respirators. That's what we do. We're Protech. We're here to make respirators. That's all that we do.
Probably the merit of Protech / HS Cover Co. is like they made products that were so unfathomably bland. And I mean this in the most respective, honest, constructive. What's the word I just
They were bland in that they were like dead simple. The designs, the actual stuff.
Nobody wanted. Sorry to interrupt, but like the whole beauty of their design is that nobody wanted to merge with them. There was literally, I mean, they weren't bad designs. They were just
They were so out of line with what the industry was doing that no one wanted anything that they had. But their shit within their own ecosystem was perfect. It worked perfectly fine.
And they were small enough, and like I said, so grassroots that they didn't have a wide enough. I could be very wrong on this because they probably had a decent enough spread, but not as big as like say Polmasan or Leco or any of those older companies that got merged into hell and back. So so HS Covers / Protech survived purely on the fact that they were just so down to the ground, and they innovated in ways that mattered, but they didn't innovate in ways that were enticing for other companies to swoop in and like, yeah, we'll give you like $5 billion, give us your assets.
They had a very, it feels like they had a very good understanding of their systems, and then they just didn't care about anyone else's. The whole concept of let's use PVC, completely out of left field, even for the 80s and 90s. Obviously, the only other place you would see that was Norway.
Yeah.
And they used PVC. Helly Hansen used it a completely different direction than this.
Yeah, I feel like with HS Cover Co. / Protech, their whole direction for going into PVC was they were wanting a more modern material than natural rubber latex, which they'd been using with like their older, legacy products. But they couldn't afford stuff like silicone, or they didn't want to afford very high-end polymers, things like that. So they worked with what they could get access to for cheap. Like they were doing they were trying to make the best design for the minimal amount of money. And I feel like they probably came very close to hitting the mark. Again, there's gripes that I have about the harness, like I've said, but there's nothing objectively bad about this for what it did. It's just peculiar to look at because it completely breaks the analog of what we've come to expect even at that time.
I mean, obviously it has threaded canister filters.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Nobody's ever going to detract from that. I mean, we've obviously there's like bayonet, but like, that's the only outlier. What you thinking?
I'm just kind of looking at it because
it is
folks,
very
I've
weird.
been home for about 2 days now after a long time out at work, so I haven't really had a lot of time to look at this.
Oh, I have. It has very weird geometry, doesn't it? And that's the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that at its core, this is like the most fascinating thing to me about the ProTech. What was the model name?
Oh shoot, I'm sorry.
We'll probably put it in the title. Forgive us. But the most fascinating thing to me about this design is at its core, this inside of this is literally a half face respirator, and this entire face blank is designed to accommodate around what is essentially a half face respirator. So what they did was, again, they took one of, I don't know if it's the same molds as like one of their existing products. Probably is. Probably, I don't know. Bots will probably chime in, like I said. But basically, yeah, what they did was where the canister ports would go, they made inlet valves. And so it very much functions like an oronasal cup, only it's just not designed as a dedicated. It's basically designed in reverse, where they had the nose cup portion first for like a half face mask, and they designed an entire face blank to fit around that shape. So the geometry is very weird by what we're used to, but that's because they basically designed this thing in reverse, and it works very well.
Let's also talk, of course, about the wet sweat.
Oh yes, that's like another downside of this thing. So I'll let you cover that up.
Yeah. So normal rubber. Do you want to grab a shelf? Do you have any examples of good blooming on here?
There's probably one around here.
So while he's looking for that, I'll
go look
explain.
over here.
Roughly, obviously, rubber is made of various chemicals, and at some points during its manufacture, it is more flexible than others. Unlike plastic, that's not due to heat, that's actually due to its chemical composition. And once it starts curing, all rubber cures over time.
Curing is like when they actually vulcanize it.
Okay.
But the problem, now that I have an example here, is some of the plasticizers, as the industry would call them nowadays.
Plasticizer meaning something that makes it flexible.
Yeah, basically, the rubber will have compounds mixed in that will allow it to remain flexible, because if rubber, like natural rubber, for example, didn't have all of these additives mixed in, then it would basically become sticky when it's hot out. It would basically crack and become very brittle when it's cold. So you have chemicals in the rubber, in basically any rubber, but especially with natural rubber latex, that keep it flexible, that keep it more resilient to different temperature shifts, and so on and so forth. But the issue therein lies that some of these usually they will mold products with an excess of these chemicals, because they know that over time, with exposure to UV and ozone, it will leach out of the facepiece. It will basically create this waxy finish on the surface, because when the mask is cured, it will be very sticky. And so they put talcum powder on rubber. They put some sort of preservative, so that when these curing agents start to leach from the actual surface of the rubber, they will coagulate with the preservative agent on the surface and create that wacky, sort of dirty looking substance that we all know as bloom. And so that's what we know with most rubbers, like say butyl or natural rubber latex. I don't think neoprene particularly does it.
Not especially, no.
But basically all the major natural rubber style rubbers, not that rubbers that behave similar to natural rubber.
All of those get a very dry bloom. This, actually, I don't know if you can see it on the wall.
It looks like we've siliconed the crap out of it. We really haven't. That's just the PVC literally sweating all of its plasticizers over time.
So its plasticizers come out as liquid instead of out as a dry white powder.
And the unfortunate result of that is that this particular PVC compound that they used is, because it's so cheap, it deteriorates at a much faster rate than, say, natural rubber latex or butyl, where it is this sweating that it's doing isn't actually just it isn't just venting excess and then stopping when it's balanced like with natural rubber. It is literally sweating itself to death because the nose cup is actually very stiff right now. I'm sure it would have been much more flexible at a previous point in its history, but at least the red rubber doesn't particularly do it as much. It's definitely the more so the black PVC. This is another interesting example here. The SR, excuse me, not SR, the R8, right? Yeah, the R8, the prototype optical sights respirator R8. We need to do a video on sometime. British,
Which we won't, because we hate you.
He said it, not me. But anywho, so this is obviously PVC as well. I'm sure anyone that's studied this particular mask for any amount of time has picked up on that. But there are, I don't know all the different blends or whatever of PVC, but you can do PVC very well because this is still incredibly flexible. It is not, I've never seen one of these that sweat, but it does off gas. And there is a nose cup inside of here, which I'll try and show off, but you can see a result of the off gassing is that all the elastic or all the rubber in the head harness is melted, and the internal oronasal cup is basically turned into just a wet taco because being in, honestly, you know, now that I'm looking at this,
Put it down on the table here.
so this, I'm going to get into this theory in just a second, but you can see that because of these natural rubber materials being exposed to this PVC material, the off-gassing from the more synthetic PVC has caused the rubber, the natural rubber, to actually deteriorate and cause it basically destabilize it. Something about the plasticizers of PVC causes natural rubber to destabilize instantly.
And you can see that. So all this shiny silver stuff here in the head harness, and then obviously
It's black.
no, it's actually coming off of a shine in the camera.
Oh,
light.
yeah. Well, me looking at it is black, but
Yeah. So you can see that. So that's the oral nasal cup all right there, and you come over to the face piece itself, and it's literally fine. It's completely fine.
It's prestigious, not pristine. Excuse me.
Dingbat.
But that's like the it's very disappointing that we can't really replace the nose cup non-destructively too. I mean,
Yeah, those nose cups are unique to that particular model.
not only that, but like, you know, it's integral to the face piece because of the unique rubber tape and wire around this outlet voice mirror.
Yeah, which is just fucking dog shit.
But anyways, that handling that actually led me to thinking of another point about the ProTech, is that could they have tried to select a particular blend of rubber compound? Because, I mean, I'm assuming these are both PVC variants, but the inner nose cup, I'm now wondering if they selected a specific different strain of PVC that they, again, sorry for the redundancy, selected for qualities of being more flexible, like to be more cushiony and comfortable on the face. So I'm wondering,
like every single other mask ever.
yes, exactly, like how, you know, some masks have beautiful face pieces and silicone inner nose cups, whereas here they just picked two different types of like rubberized PVC material, but the downside is that this more flexible stuff was a bit more unstable when exposed to this more stable stuff. Whereas, because again, similar to the S6, R8, I'm so tired. The face piece, perfectly fine. It's perfectly flexible. It's basically as it was from day one. Inner nose cup, head harness, completely rotten. Well, head harness is doing a little better on this, but there are spots where it's basically as sticky and stretched out and gooey as the R8 here. But yeah, that is interesting, actually. I didn't even think about that before getting into this.
Also, as an aside, in case anyone's wondering, this particular mask is actually a Portuguese reissued British GSR Mark V.
And this is a Avon example, and not many people, I'm sure some people do, but like quality of Avon's masks back then were not the greatest.
Yeah. So particular small differences about it is obviously everything's redone with electrical tape.
And the hardware is painted like this silver hammer finish.
Yeah, the silver crackle hammer finish, and then this is a standard. What is this, number 4A1 or whatever the fuck?
It's like a type F, type E. I don't know what the fuck they're called.
This would be red if it was British. It's one of those red canisters like you see on every single other GSR.
Let me take a look.
Yeah, look there, number 4.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Number 4A.
I always thought they had like letter designations, like E, F, and
Well, yeah, they do, but
yeah, okay.
that would be red.
Yeah.
It's literally a standard World War II issue Mark V. It's just been repainted for the Portuguese Navy, last I heard. So, just something
Anyways.
kind of cool because,
Just as the most bloomed mask I could find immediately.
yeah.
And not that it's really all that bloomed. It's just it's got a little bit of bloom, but it's like it looks more dirty because it's absorbed like dust from the atmosphere.
Yeah. Anyway, back on the ProTech, it's actually you have to take it in the context of having no context because you really can't compare this to a lot of other masks. Obviously, the visor is fucking massive compared to the only other thing you see this on is like Soviet prototypes for the M80B.
Let me get everything back into frame here. Because I think I don't know how chopped off my head was in this framing so far, but
I'll chop your head off.
yeah, that is actually kind of interesting to point out now that I'm thinking about it, because the lens here, it is actually ridiculously difficult to do decent bonding of like this isn't really particularly flexible, so I guess they kind of had it easier in that regard. But yeah,
that is bonded. That does not peel away.
No, there's
secure.
no lens frame. There's no clamp or anything. That is just bonded to the actual hard plastic lens, and we didn't really see a lot of that, at least until like the Russian the Briz face pieces, like
the later Briz 3401s.
Yeah, stuff like that. Which we do have one of them. We just don't have one like right here to compare it to, so that might be something we'll do later. But yeah, so it's very interesting what they were able to achieve with this design while still working with an incredibly tight budget and hardware limitations. But yeah, just it's on first glance, it's very, very easy to hate on this thing. I want to hate on this thing because it's goofy and it has a lot of things working against it. But overall, it's a very, very well thought out design, especially considering what they were trying to work around.
If you look at it, you have to really take it. I don't think there's any MBU clones in this room.
No.
So.
Thank God. Actually, no, I'm wrong. There's like literally one behind us.
Oh, okay. See, so especially if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This may be one of the last really interesting industrial masks, especially from the 90s, because literally fucking everyone else was doing this. I've got probably about a dozen different different MBU 13 clones from various companies, Polasan, Scott,
Sierra.
Well, yeah, it was Sierra's kind of thing anyway.
Yeah.
But Norton, whatever the fuck. I've got a bunch of these, and it was literally this. Everyone was doing this.
Everyone made some variant of this face piece with very minimal changes.
MSA already had the clear view, but that's literally the same fucking layout, just with minor differences. And then this is fine. It's well informed. It's the same as everything else that anyone has ever done. It's 5-point. Lens is fine. Clamshell, exhale valve, completely normal, completely reasonable, completely logical. This completely ignores every single fucking rule that they had followed for the last 50 years. So that's the cool thing about these. If you really get into it, if you really want something interesting, this is so fucking far off the walls for the 80s and 90s compared to that. You have to love it.
And in comparison, it was probably a hell of a lot more comfortable. It wasn't as bulky, and it was much more inexpensive. So yeah, I mean, if you were in the whatever region sold these and you wanted a very inexpensive face piece for painting and maybe even like minor fumigation work or just general anywhere where there was dust related hazards, this would be acceptable. This would be a very solid option for that period. If you didn't want to cough up like MSA money or you didn't want to buy one of the 5 million MBU clones on the market.
Because fuck MBUs, I hate them.
I hate them so much.
Anyway, I think that's about all.
That's really all we can say about it. I mean, we covered pretty much all the bases.
Yep. So again, go watch Bots' stuff. They did a really good job, and thank you, Bots, for turning us on to this. Because really, frankly, I would not have looked at this at all whatsoever. So
And yeah, I mean, I could probably see these things becoming hard to find eventually because like nobody.
dude, it took me like 2 years to find this one.
Yeah, they're already kind of getting up there in scarcity. Oh god, here it comes. Oh look, someone posted. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna get into it.
These also are basically impossible to modify. There's really nothing you could do with them.
Do not challenge them. Do not challenge these people.
Everyone deserves to suffer.
And how?